up, guys? And I was gone yesterday, so we're going to talk today about two content standards. Yesterday, while I was gone, on Wednesday, you guys talked about content standard 1.2c, being able to identify and summarize the restriction of colonial rights as British subjects, including the battles of Lexington and Concord as a rallying point of armed colonial resistance against Britain. Okay, so really, we just want you to know what about the battles of Lexington and Concord is so significant. Now, in the reading that you guys did yesterday, you learned that the battle took place on April 18th and 19th of 1775. On April 18th, you've got a guy named Paul Revere. He finds out that there's a British plan to march to Concord at night to destroy the colonial weapons stores, basically to put down this revolution before it even started. Okay, so the battles at Lexington and Concord, they're significant because, one, you've got an armed colonial militia because the colonies aren't a nation yet, so they don't have an army. But they are fighting a very well-trained British army, one of the most powerful armies in the world. So that's got to be earth-shaking for the colonists at this point. The militia was way outnumbered at this point in time, probably around by 700 British soldiers. They were outnumbered, but you've got British troops at Lexington. They're across the field. They're facing the colonial militia, and the colonial general John Parker, he tells his men, stand your ground. Don't fire unless fired upon. But if they mean to have a war, let it begin here. Very soon, the first shot rang out. Nobody really knows who shot it, but it was known as the shot heard around the world. Now, the picture on this slide is from a very well-known Schoolhouse Rock video. I guarantee if you type in YouTube, Schoolhouse Rock, battles at Lexington and Concord, shot heard around the world, you'll get that video. It's one of the best resources. I always remember it every single time I hear shot heard around the world. But the battles at Lexington and Concord were so significant because they were the actual start of the American Revolution. The things that happened there put into a snowball effect that actually is going to lead up to the colonists declaring independence from Britain. So the battles at Lexington and Concord, the shot heard around the world, it's the start of the American Revolution. And that's what you guys talked about in Content Standard 1.2c. Now, today, we're talking about Content Standard 1.2d. What I really want you to know is I need you to understand the significance of Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech and Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense. They both were advocating for the defense of colonial rights and independence. So first up, let's talk about Patrick Henry's speech. Now, Patrick Henry was a pretty fiery guy, and if you find on YouTube any of the videos of him actually giving the speech, they're not real, but they're dramatizations. They're really cool depictions of how he was in this actual meeting. So in the meeting, in the Virginia Convention on March 23rd, 1775, you got Patrick Henry in a room full of delegates that don't necessarily want to go to war with Britain. Most people want peace at this point. They think they can still work it out without having a war. But Patrick Henry goes on a huge rant in his speech, talks about how the colonists have God on their side. If we decide to fight right now, there's no better time. He says, if we wait a week, if we wait a month, if we wait a year, how much stronger are we going to be? If we decide to surrender, it's just like giving ourselves as slaves to the British Empire. At the end of his speech, he says to the room, give me liberty or give me death. He says, if I can't be free, I'd rather die. I'd much rather fight for my freedom than live as a slave to the British. Give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry's speech convinces these delegates at the Virginia Convention and further pushes the idea of American colonial independence for and leading toward the American Revolution. Now, this was only one of two things that pushed that idea. The second thing was Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense. Now, a pamphlet is just a huge stack of papers that were written by one particular person, kind of put together like a book. So Thomas Paine, he was very opinionated, very rebellious in his early years, and he finally makes his way to North America kind of as a writer by the way of Benjamin Franklin. So he writes a pamphlet after he's experienced what these colonists have been through via the taxes, the Intolerable Acts. He sees this stuff happening, and so he writes a pamphlet to the public. And the pamphlet is called Common Sense for a reason. Now, common sense, you guys should know what that means. I mean, if I walk up to a stove and there is a pot with water boiling, I'm probably not going to stick my hand in the pot because I have the common sense not to do that. It just makes sense. I know the water's hot, I'm going to get burned. So he speaks about the real reasons why the colonists should actually consider independence from Britain rather than not doing anything or just submitting to British rule. One of the biggest questions that he poses to the colonists is, why should a continent be perpetually governed by an island? And if you look at that I have on the slide right here, the colonies are huge. On a world scale, that's actually a pretty big landmass for one country to actually own in the 1700s. He's saying this continent's pretty big. Now, if you look over here at Britain, this tiny little pink island, why should this huge area be governed by this tiny little island? It doesn't make sense. It makes sense for the colonists to declare independent. We're bigger. We understand how to run a government. Stop telling us what to do. One of the other questions that he poses to the colonists is, if a king treats you like dirt, why would you keep respecting them? It's hard to respect someone that doesn't treat you with respect, because as humans, we're really, really bad at feelings, really. We're just bad at when somebody treats us badly, we want to treat them badly. We don't want to treat them with respect. So Thomas Paine is saying, guys, you're getting treated badly. Show them that you're not just going to take it, that it's actually going to change your mind about independence. And Thomas Paine's pamphlet spreads like wildfire around the colonies, definitely impacting all the general people. Most of the public had a copy or saw a copy of this pamphlet, and it changed a lot of the colonists' mind moving forward towards independence. So nearing the end here, the significance of both of these really is that both Common Sense and Patrick Henry's speech changed the minds of colonists about what they should do against Britain. Patrick Henry convinced the delegates. Thomas Paine convinces the general public that declaring independence wasn't such a bad idea anyway, and that in doing that, you're not actually doing anything bad. You're standing up for the ideas of natural rights, that we shouldn't be treated this way. We should deserve to have a say in what happens in our country. And really, this was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of getting the American Revolution started. Pretty soon, the Second Continental Congress is going to convene, and they're going to declare independence from Britain formally with the Declaration of Independence, but we'll talk about that later. So realistically, the big thing that I wanted you guys to get today, I wanted you to know about Patrick Henry's Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech and Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense. Hopefully, through this, you've gotten a pretty good idea of what both of these are, and I hope that it helps you in your quest to further your knowledge about American history. If you guys have any questions, you can always ask me in class, or you can leave a comment. I'll get a notification. Definitely try to answer it there. I'm no historian, just a teacher, but I will do my best. I appreciate it. We will see you later.